there was like a problem with my business bank. Unfortunately, a client hadn't paid on time and a big payment needed to go out, and it was going to blow out the overdraft. This happens to cash flow problems hit businesses all the time. It's normal. It's not pleasant, but it's normal. And I looked on the business banking app, saw the balance, knew what was going on, couldn't fix it straight away. And I had a 4-day-long panic attack. I literally couldn't think of anything else. I couldn't breathe. I was so stressed. I'd never really had that before. And that was kind of when I was like, okay, this isn't normal.
Right.
This is really not okay.
Yes.
And what happens when the next thing goes wrong? As it will do. We were talking earlier about, life is a series of, ups and downs. And unfortunately, I'd lost the ability to deal with any kind of problem or setback or unexpected. I was always living in fear and in a state of fight or flight about what's gonna hit me next.
Hello and welcome back to our channel where we delve into everything aesthetics and well-being from within and without. Our well-being encompasses both physical and mental well-being, but mental well-being is often overlooked or even taboo in many cultures. I've personally navigated through rough trains of burnout, chronic stress and anxiety. Through my own journey, I have learned the importance of open dialogue and sharing of knowledge. And I thank Julia for doing so too. So today we're going to talk about mental well-being and burnout and how to recognize it and a little bit of our life journey when it comes to burnout. So I came across Julia's video a while ago on LinkedIn, and I want to thank you again for so bravely putting the video out there. And that's when we organized to see each other today and do a heart-to-heart chat, a very informal conversation about well-being in general.
Yeah.
And guess what? Without realizing, which we should have really realized, but without realizing, today is the World Mental Health Awareness Day.
It is indeed.
What a day for this conversation.
It was perfect timing. Absolutely.
Indeed, indeed. So today it's an absolute pleasure to be with you here, Julia. And Julia will share with us her personal journey of burnout, can I call it?
Yeah, I guess we should name the beast.
Name the beast. Okay. Shall we start from the very beginning? And it'd be lovely for our audience and everybody to have a brief introduction of yourself, please. And tell us what happened and about your professional background and what led into you realizing that there was something that's out of ordinary.
So for those who don't know me, I'm Julia Kendrick. I'm the founder and director of Kendrick PR. So we're a specialist public relations and communications agency. We work with a lot of aesthetic practitioners. This is where my path has crossed with yours over many, many years. And it's an independent business, a small agency, as I said. So, as any entrepreneur or business founder knows, it's tough working for yourself. I experienced quite a few years of it just being me on my own, and then I eventually managed to build a team around me and grow the business. And, that was a very stressful but a very rewarding process. And I think it was a really strange kind of evolution of events, and we've been talking about this today as well. I think COVID threw a real spanner in the works, for better and for worse in some ways. I think it has changed completely the way that we work and that we operate and that we see ourselves, because it broke all the rules. We had to break all the rules. And as with a lot of change, it was painful for people in many ways. I was lucky enough that I did not lose anybody, and that's the number one thing. But from a purely business perspective, for me, it was the sort of cherry on top of a number of years of constant stress, running consistently lower and lower on my own pot of energy. I had less and less and less to give, and then COVID hit. And we all hunkered down and we, scraped and managed to get through it. And it was almost the worst bit was last year, where I thought, okay, the worst is over. Businesses are going to bounce back. People, brands and clinics and things in the industry are going to be, reinvesting in their PR and marketing, because it is the first thing to get cut on any budget line. But when it didn't happen, it was almost like you had been underwater for a long time, waiting to come up for air, and then just being told, oh, no, just stay down a bit longer. And you're like, I can't, I've been holding on for so long. And it was when that bounce back just didn't happen and the squeeze kept going that I just had run out of any kind of internal mental resources to keep it going. So it snuck up on me. You think, it's just stress, it's just being busy, it's just part of running your own business. This is how you're meant to feel. It's normal to feel like this. And then it just built up and built up and built up. And then there came a point where I realized my reactions were not normal in a sense. So there was one day, and I remember it very clearly. There was like a problem with my business bank. Unfortunately, a client hadn't paid on time and a big payment needed to go out, and it was going to blow out the overdraft. This happens to cash flow. Cash flow problems hit businesses all the time. It's normal. It's not pleasant, but it's normal. And I looked on the business banking app, saw the balance, knew what was going on, couldn't fix it straight away. And I had a 4-day long panic attack. I literally couldn't think of anything else. I couldn't breathe. I was so stressed. I'd never really had that before. And that was kind of when I was like, okay, this isn't normal.
Right.
This is really not okay.
Yes.
And what happens when the next thing goes wrong, as it will do. We were talking earlier about, life is a series of, ups and downs. And unfortunately, I'd lost the ability to deal with any kind of problem or setback or unexpected. I was always living in fear and in a state of fight or flight about what's gonna hit me next. And that I just had no reservoir left to cope with it in a appropriate way. And that's when I realized, I need some help now. So
Thank you, Julia. Thank you. It's very brave of you. Thank you for sharing with us. I know it takes a lot to experience it, but it also takes a lot to openly share it. And you're not only sharing it with your loved ones and family members and friends, you're kind enough and brave enough to go out there and share it with everybody. And I really appreciate that because, as you know, I've gone through my own journey. And through that and through my healing journey, I've learned the importance of open conversations and being open about this, not just because it helps you as a person, but also it helps a lot of other people, because it is surprising how many people are going through this and they don't realize what's happening.
Or they've been through it and they're reflecting on their own journey. I mean, as I say, I made a post a couple of weeks ago just to very briefly touch on this topic, say that I had gone through it and share a couple of very brief thoughts on resources that might help, and really just to send the message out that if you're feeling this way, you are not alone. And I was saying to you, the response that I have had really touched me, but also shocked me. People that I hadn't heard from or spoken to in years came out of the woodwork and were like, thank you so much for posting that. I went through something similar, or I've been through this, and it really helps to know you're not alone. And it made me sad in a way that so many people that I knew, like I didn't know, you'd been through that journey as well, and it's only when somebody speaks about it that you suddenly discover this sort of community is there. And it does feel uncomfortable to talk about it. We've spoken about that as well, it feels a little bit like, oh, who am I to be talking about this, in a sense. And all I can share is my experience of it. There is definitely a thing when you're going through it to think, yes, I'm having a crap time right now, but other people have it so much worse. Or, you know, who am I to complain about it when I've got this, this, and this, you know, in my life to help me, and yet still I feel like I can't cope. You know, you do sort of sometimes self-rationalize and say, well, it can't be that bad. It can't be real burnout because X, Y, Z, you know. So I think whilst I was happy to put that post out there, it really was a year and a bit after the actual experience. And there was a reason why I wasn't able to and didn't want to talk about it when I was going through it.
May I ask you, because going back to what you said, I know in our industry for sure, and I'm pretty sure it happens in every industry and for everybody out there, that first of all, we know something's wrong, but we hide it. So we deny it.
Absolutely.
We think everything's normal. And then going back to what you said, we get so used to this chronic stress that we get addicted to it. And we think it's normal. And if it's not there, we think something's wrong. So that becomes our normal state of being. But also this fear of judgment, fear of thinking, what if I talk about this and what happens to my professional life? And I'd love for you to share with us, if you're comfortable talking about that. You said you shared a year and so after, and a lot of us don't ever share what we've gone through, what happened to us, how we actually came out of it. Did we ever come out of it? Because you're absolutely right. Our body is constantly in a state of fight and flight. So what we're doing is we're reacting to every little thing in life. There is no space to think about what's going on, to respond.
Definitely.
So we have that reactive personality, and then we get upset with ourselves because you think, oh, that's not me. Why am I feeling like this? So there is psychological components to it, but there's also physical component to it that we will come back to later on. So you were feeling palpitations and you were not feeling well physically. So it's not just the mental status. So going back to what you were saying, that you shared it a year to a year and a half after, and you had some worries at the time. Are you comfortable sharing what your worries were?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think I made the joke to you earlier, you know, when you are running your own business, and even if you're not running your own business, but when you are in charge of your own business, you have employees who depend on you, you have clients who depend on you. They want to know that their business is in safe hands, that their employment is in safe hands, that they are being looked after. And if you were on a transatlantic flight and suddenly had an announcement that the captain wasn't feeling so great and they're just going to figure out what's happening right now, you would have a small reaction, I think.
Yes.
Nobody wants to know that the captain of the ship is not doing well. And that is no reflection whatsoever on, you know, my clients or my team. It's something that's literally inside your head. I can't really be honest about what I'm going through because people will worry about me. People may decide not to work with me, or they might jump ship. They might think, maybe it's not such a great place to be, or whatever it is. There's always a reason, and there's just a sort of stigma around it, in a sense. Even though we've become so much more aware and so much more accepting of mental health conditions and depression, but I think that depression comes into it, and we're quite aware in this industry, certainly. But when we talk about burnout, it's a very different thing, and it took me a while to understand it. But it was that fear of worrying everybody else around me that I thought, no, if I can just get myself together and get through this, then it'll all be okay, and I won't need to worry anyone else or change things too much. I'll just bring myself back up to normal, and then it'll all be okay. But actually, I think it was more that realization of there's so much more support out there than you realize.
Absolutely.
And it is scary, It's an incredibly vulnerable
Yes.
place to be, because you're essentially admitting like that you have just lost that ability to cope in some senses, to effectively function, not to function on 1% battery and fight or flight. You still get everything done, but you're a bit of a mess. It's a really strange place to be, and I think part of my recovery process, my therapist wanted me to take a whole month off. Now, this wasn't going to the GP and getting signed off. This was take a step back from the business for a month. The team can absolutely handle it. You might want to let clients know. And it was almost hidden in a sense that it was around holiday season anyway. It was August last year. And I said to the team, look, I'm taking a bit of time off. I'm feeling a bit fried. I need a bit of proper downtime. And you guys are all amazing. It's a quiet time of year anyway. I've got no concerns whatsoever that you can handle everything. But actually admitting that I was going to take time for myself felt exceptionally uncomfortable. It felt...
We're not used to it.
We're not used to it. And it almost felt a little attention-seeky as well. I don't know. There was all sorts of uncomfortable feelings around it. And, the logical part of my brain, the logical things that my therapist is saying to me was like, well, it's not like the team can't cope without you. They're rocking it. They're doing a great job. You don't even have to worry about that. Some people don't have that luxury.
Yes.
You are in a great position to be able to let them continue on and you take some of the time that you need. And this was after 4 months of therapy. So it was like there'd been a lot of other healing and discussion and thinking things through before actually taking some time off. So the time off didn't happen straight away. So that was a strange process to go through.
Not so much of a question, but you highlighted a few things that we talked about previously before we started the recording. And one is support out there, and there is way more support than we think there is. And for us, we always think about people who are going to judge us. And it's very difficult to ask for help. And yes, there is help, and there is that understanding that we're all human, but also realizing how many people are actually going through this or have gone through this themselves makes it all more of a human experience for us. And that's how we can relate to each other.
Definitely.
But also we talked about how today is the awareness day, but how many people will put up a post out there, and this is not to criticize anybody, but have they taken a deep look at what they're doing in their lives and their own family members? And you mentioned something really important. Who in the family is quiet or acting out of character? And are you taking care of them or leaving them be? And that's really important.
I think actually one of those things that you were saying to me earlier, it's not even, is somebody acting quiet or different? I remember I would actively avoid social situations.
Exactly, yes.
Because I couldn't bear people maybe who I hadn't seen in a little while going, how are you?
How's business going?
It all looks great. And the effort of going, yeah, it's all fine.
Yeah.
That I just...
Not physically possible.
Could not bear the thought of doing. I couldn't wear the mask. Even meeting up with like my lovely NCT like baby mums from years ago, especially meeting up with people I hadn't seen for a while, how's it all going? And that the idea of performing for the sake of social convention, I guess, was just... So maybe people that are retiring or drawing themselves out of social situations, or that classic that we were saying, how are you? And they kind of go, fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And they just, you can see that they're choking it back, and they're maybe not able to talk about it or want to talk about it. And it's not necessarily that it's not your role or maybe appropriate to dive in there, but just maybe that's the awareness part, you know, is just noticing, okay, maybe they
Yes.
might need a little bit of help and support, and finding an appropriate time or an appropriate way to connect with that person and
Just be there.
just be there.
Let them be however they need to be, but be there and show that you're there. They don't have to come and speak to you.
No.
They don't have to do anything. There are no expectations, but you're there if they want to come and speak.
Yeah.
If they need something.
Or if they maybe want to find somebody else to speak to, or a resource that might work for them at that point. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I think, again, we talked about this earlier on. And one thing that's really important, especially in our industry and as healthcare professionals, is the picture that we put out there on social media. And there is a lot of social media posts that portray a perfect life, a perfect business, a perfect profession. I think a lot of people are doing their audience and fans a disservice by not portraying a real life story.
Social media just shows one side of things, the best part. Yeah. And maybe not everybody will feel comfortable with a warts and all approach. Yeah. But I think the key word is authenticity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Isn't it? Because,
absolutely.
You know, you're not necessarily, it might not be professional to show certain elements, or you might not feel comfortable showing certain elements, but where and when you can, I think it's important to acknowledge the difficulties, the hard work,
absolutely,
you know, the behind the scenes, absolutely. The fact sometimes, you know, your kid draws crayon all over your beautiful wall or whatever it might be, you know.
Absolutely.
Because I think you said very well earlier that particularly I think as women in this industry, but also just in business in general, we hold ourselves to such a high standard, and we've been a little bit of a victim of that kind of girl boss, that hustle culture. I certainly have. I've done it myself.
We've all been there. I think having a personality, a character, and being a professional and being a perfectionist brings all of this together.
Yes.
And you want to be perfect, doing everything you're doing.
And none of those are necessarily bad things.
Not at all. Not at all.
I think it's like you say, if the energy that it takes you to maintain this all singing, all dancing, lifestyle, persona, work ethic, everything, something's got to give. And I think that's the lesson that I learned from Burnout, is that if you don't have regular outlets, yes. then it will all
outlets and tools to deal with life situations, and they can be good life situations or challenging life situations. I think we need tools with both situations, and that will help us. This talk came out of our conversation with regards to that we have to be a bit more responsible when it comes to social media as healthcare professionals, because when we're portraying that we're doing so many things at the same time and everything's so good and everything's so perfect, we're doing a disservice to our audience, because then they feel inadequate. It's exactly like the toxicity of positive affirmations at times, because people want to be positive all the time, but then that brings toxicity because things may not go well and they think they're not doing something right in their lives.
Definitely.
And if somebody else is achieving so much, doing so many things at the same time, having their babies and going to conferences and doing this and that, what are they doing wrong? They don't realize that that's just a facade, and it's not the reality of things.
It's really difficult. I think we've been programmed to push ourselves to achieve the maximum in every direction. And you know, I personally used to thrive on that.
Yes.
You know, I like pushing myself. I like trying, you know, to be the best I can in every way. But I think, like you say, that acknowledgement, there's a danger there. There's a danger there that if you fall down that rabbit hole without the appropriate support, without tools, without taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
And also, you know, seeing other people in the same space doing the same. You know, if you've got no role models or no social references,
Indeed.
it's easy to think like, well, everyone else is coping, why can't I? You know,
Indeed.
it's literally that constant looking to either side of you to see that validation.
Indeed.
And I think that's where it can get so dangerous, particularly on social, because we're selective about what we present to the public and on all our profiles. So, you know.
I think, you know, it comes with another danger too, because you're projecting, not you.
Me personally.
We all want to project our best selves.
Yes, which is natural and
Indeed.
totally fine.
We all want to be good, and that's being a human being. But the challenge is at times when you're going through challenges in life, then you look at those things yourself and you're like, oh, I'm not truly that. And then you start feeling inadequate and unhappy in life because that portrays something that is not actually true. So not only we're doing a disservice to others, but to ourselves too, because as you said, a perfect word for this earlier on, there's no authenticity there.
And I think that is the hardest thing is to get over that feeling of it's okay to show that it's not all perfect, but it takes a while before you maybe are even able to admit that to yourself, let alone to other people, you know. So hence why, you know, when I sent that post out, I didn't really expect many people to see it. And it's turned out to, I think, it's been like my most viewed, shared, commented on post ever. And I feel a little uncomfortable about it in a way, despite the fact it's prompted lots of really lovely conversations. It's prompted lots of people getting in touch, which is wonderful. But it's also made me feel very much like, God, you know, how many other people that I know are out there who are currently going through this and don't feel they can talk about it yet, or
haven't even recognized they're going through
it. I mean, yeah, it took me a good 2 months of therapy to even say the word burnout, because to me burnout felt like a bit of a media buzzword that had been not abused but had been misappropriated an awful lot of the time. People were using it in the same way as some people say, instead of saying, I'm feeling a bit down or I'm feeling a bit sad, they go, oh, I'm depressed. And it's like, no. If you are actually depressed, that's a very different thing. And if you've been through depression or know someone who's been through depression, that can kind of set you a little bit prickly, I think. You know, but it just became a word, a flippant word that people could say. And I felt that that's what burnout was being used as. So I didn't want to associate that word with what I was feeling, because it didn't feel to me like the right fit. But it took me a while to, as you say, like, put together the mental side of things, the physical side of things, acknowledge all the sort of baggage that had come before that had contributed to this. Because in my view, I was like, God, we've been through a really tough couple of years. You know, the word unprecedented was overused by all and sundry, but it was true.
Yes.
We've been through this crazy time. We've come out the other side, and I was so frustrated with myself because I felt like, why can't I be at that? Right, let's go, ready, get up and go. You know, the world's coming back online now, thank God, let's go. Where's my energy? Where's my enthusiasm? It just wasn't there. And I was thinking, it was like I'd kind of, I think I said to my therapist something like, I feel like I'm finally, the starting whistle has gone on the race and my legs aren't working.
Yes.
And she was the one to point out, and it sounds so blooming obvious, but she was like, well, remember the marathon that you've just run? That's why you've got nothing left in your legs. And I was like, okay. And it sounds so obvious, but when you almost have tunnel vision, I think. You can't really acknowledge the build up of situations. And I think that's the sneaky thing about burnout, is it it can sneak up on you. You're like,
And it does.
it does, yeah. You just say, oh, I'm just tired, I'm just stressed. It's been a really difficult couple of weeks, months,
Yes.
years.
You know, Julia, you're saying so many key points that I really love to come back to. No, this is really, really good. One is importance of professionals, because I know some of our healthcare professionals and colleagues are going to listen to this, and we think we know a fair amount. Or we know somebody who knows a fair amount.
Yeah.
But this really highlights the importance of going to psychologists, psychotherapists, therapists, people who have had training on this and who can sit and look at all of this from an outsider's point of view, from a different perspective, rather than from our own perspective, and help us see what's happening. So I think one point is that we need to really recognize that there's absolutely no shame in going and getting some help and understanding what's going on. But also you said that it sneaks up on you, and it really does, because we're busy with life. We're trying to juggle so many different things, and there are so many stresses that come on our way daily, weekly, monthly, annually. And we have to bounce back quickly, and we have to get on with our life. We have to achieve more, and we have to do more. And there are some traumas in life that if we don't take a step back and heal from them, grieve sometimes, they will bottle up and they will show themselves in the most ugliest way at times. And at times that we don't expect them to show at all.
Yeah.
And that's hard to deal with them then. But we're left with no choice, because we will definitely have either a mental breakdown or a physical illness or breakdown, or both together. And it's always like disease. We always say prevention is better than treatment, because, and I think that's exactly why we're having this conversation, to raise awareness.
Yeah.
To inform people that this is something that a lot of us go through and how we've dealt with it.
And I think, like you say, that prevention message is so important as well, because it's part of the prevention thing as well, but it's also part of the recovery, because it's now where you're, exactly as you say, putting in place those changes and those tools and those checkpoints for yourself to prevent that build up again. Because I think one of the things that I found hard, and I'm sure you can relate to this as well, it's like, at what point do you say, oh, something's not right, I actually do need help? It's not just having struggled through COVID and whatever else it might be that has caused you to burn out. That turning point of, I don't want to feel like this anymore, I physically can't go on doing this, because I'm going to be unwell, something really bad's going to happen. I think a lot of people might think, well, it's not that bad, I'm just tired all the time and stressed out, and I feel a bit wiped, and I've kind of lost my passion for what I do. But everyone feels like that now and then, and it feels very scary to label it and get to that point of, okay, this is officially now burnout. But actually, when I finally got to that point and had almost the official stamp from the therapist of this, you have been diagnosed.
Yes.
I burst into floods of tears, and she was like, oh, is it just because somebody has told you that it is a thing, that it is an actually, you meet the criteria? Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, I'm looking at my computer because I did some preparation for our meeting today.
Of course you did.
And sorry, I'm not being rude.
No,
and
no.
You are saying some really key points. And if we don't highlight them, we'll pass by these important points without really highlighting their importance. And here I really just want to find there is a big difference between stress and being stressed out and burnt out, and there's signs and symptoms and characteristics.
Yeah.
And what burnout really is, because a lot of people think, oh, they're just burnt out because they're chronically tired, and they don't realize it's not that. It's not our perspective of what burnout is, but burnout is actually some signs and symptoms that you can put together and you can have a diagnosis. Our stress response in life is to immediate threats.
Yes.
So there's an immediate threat to something, and we have a stress response, and it's good for us because it helps us act, and hopefully help us act rather than freeze and run from it.
Yes.
So this is a tool actually. So a lot of people, when they feel stressed, it's a very good tool to say, no, I'm excited about this. I'm going to act on this. Then we have chronic stress, and that chronic stress means our bodies are producing cortisol all the time. And that's affecting both our biology and our psychology, and that causes disease. And here we're talking about burnout. So there are three main components, and you mentioned them beautifully yourself. There's emotional exhaustion.
Yeah.
You're exhausted all the time. There is no mental capacity to do things. There's no mental capacity to socialize or listen to somebody talk about their birthday in Majorca. So you want to
avoid it.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that beautifully. There is a depersonalization. You detach from reality, from life.
Yes. Yeah.
And a growing distance from one's responsibilities or job.
Yeah. So I remember that I had to get up in the morning because I had to get the children up, breakfasted to school. And often, as soon as they were at school, I would come back and I would get into bed.
Yeah.
And I would maybe, fire off the emails that I needed to send. And then I would hope to God that I didn't have to do anything else. I would basically do the minimal amount of interactions or, set plate spinning that needed to go as soon as I could hide, literally and figuratively, and all the rest of it. That definitely just pulling out because you just couldn't
face it.
Literally. Yeah. It's
literally
the hiding. Yeah.
Yes. It's safe to be within your own space, both physically and mentally.
And I think obviously coming out of lockdown, we were used to just being in our homes all the time, in our cocoons, I don't think I'd ever, worn pajamas all day before.
No.
Or worked from my bed, or done team calls from my bed.
Or work from home much.
No, never. And then it felt like anything other than that was just going to be too much, But again, there was that real sort of hiding. It was putting on the makeup, putting on the smart outfit for a Zoom call, and then literally retreating back as soon as you physically could. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that also comes with a reduced sense of accomplishment. So you were doing your work. You were delivering to your clients. Your team was doing their work. But there is a less sense of accomplishment, whereas if you were not in that situation, you'd celebrate a lot of those milestones for both yourself and others.
I think as well there was just hugely reduced satisfaction in what I was doing. So I was kind of having conversations about whether or not I just wanted to pack in this career and do something else.
Yes.
Didn't know what else, but I just felt that I had lost
your mojo,
all motivation, all passion for it. I could do it.
Yes.
It was really strange. There was no joy. It was just this weird, soulless middle space of, that was a very strange kind of sensation. And it was so normal by that point. That was kind of...
You're used to it.
You're used to it. And you're like, well, is this just how I feel now? Is this actually how I feel?
Isn't everybody feeling that?
Isn't everybody feeling that? Or is this just a function of, what's been going on? Am I going to get it back? Can I get it back? Is it even possible?
I think if it goes on for long enough, you forget how you were before. If you let it go on for long enough,
Yeah.
it becomes the norm.
Well, like you say, people functioning on that sort of chronic stress. I think, medics certainly.
Oh, yes.
That's part and parcel of the experience.
Absolutely.
Almost.
If it's not there, you think something's wrong.
Yes.
Because you're constantly hyper alert, you're constantly wanting to do something, you're constantly wanting to act. And you don't realize that you're constantly and chronically stressed and what that's doing to your body. Chronic stress actually changes the structure of our brain.
Yeah.
It's not only chemicals, it changes the structure of our brain.
Turns out your kidneys, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I've heard a lot of people post-COVID espousing the benefits of home cortisol testing. And that seems to have risen a lot in popularity and in awareness. I don't think your average person, your average consumer would really have known about stuff like
beforehand.
That pre-COVID. So I think there is that feeling of we have all been through an extremely stressful period, and for various reasons.
It was a collective experience for sure.
It was. And some people are like, "Oh, why are you still talking about it? It was over. It's in the past. It's years. It's it's been a couple of years now." And it's like, yeah, it's been a couple of years, and we are just kind of, in some senses, able to even recover in some ways from that experience. It takes time.
And I think a lot of us forget it wasn't just COVID.
Yes.
It was not just one thing.
Yes.
It was a lot of things that we experienced during that time. And depending on which country you were in, you experience a lot of other different things. So, for example, in the UK, where we are, we had Brexit, we had COVID, and so many other things. And you go through so many changes with your own family, with your own business. And we keep going and keep going and keep going, and don't allow ourselves to bring our head out of water to take a breath. And you hold your breath for so long, and there's a point that the body and the brain goes, enough is enough.
Yeah. And I think, like you say, that collective experience, it was affecting our business life.
Yes.
It was affecting our family, our health life.
A lot of fear.
Family life. Yeah. Children, we had homeschooling.
Yes.
That was, if that didn't show us that we should be paying teachers more, I don't know what will. The threat of homeschool and Google Classrooms, I think, is a whole other trauma. But yeah, I think that actually a business coach that I worked with, going back to your point about chronic stress and feeling like you need that feeling to feel like you're
alive,
doing well, or that you're functioning normally, or that you're thriving in your business, is definitely something that I resonate with. And I had a really fabulous business coach that I work with who was helping me readjust my perception of productivity.
Yes.
Because for me, productivity was busy,
Yes.
spinning 12 plates,
Yes.
and days that I wasn't jam-packed with
Yes.
emails and meetings and action, I felt unproductive.
Yes.
I always felt like I was skiving from my own business, which is ridiculous, but it didn't feel positive and productive for me to use my time in other ways, or to have a different feeling of how I was using my time.
I completely relate to that.
It's such a weird thing to kind of get your head around, and that difference between chronic stress and perceptions of productivity, and how long you can keep going in a particular pattern.
Absolutely. And perception of success is not what people say it is for you and how you define it in your own life. And we misunderstand this so massively. And I completely relate to what you just said, because to me, being busy was good. I would fly from this conference to another conference, and I do this paper and that paper, clinic here and clinic there, come and see family, come and see patients here, see patients there. And I loved it. I thrived on it. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And being busy was my sense of accomplishment, and it used to give me energy and power to go on.
Yes.
So when you take at the moment you realize and you take a step back to observe what's happening to you physically, mentally, to your life, to your relationships, the first sensation is fear, because you think, oh my God, what if I stop all of this? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my career? So as competitive and type A personality that we are, we get scared.
Yeah.
Secondly, you're like, this is not normal. I'm not busy. How can I not be busy? This is absolutely, what do I do with my days? And a lot of us don't have hobbies. A lot of us don't, we just work. We haven't had time for hobbies. Yeah. And you're like, no, this is not normal to sit around and do nothing. And a big misconception that a lot of people have is that self-care is selfish.
Yes.
So yes, you'd go and do your nails, you do your hair, but it's something that has to be done.
Yes.
Let's use it as an example.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so much consumer research about this, and when I was in Allegan, almost the consumer profiling research, there was a category that was called beauty is business. It's not a luxury. It's not a relaxing, nourishing experience. It's, I need my hair to be done. I need my nails to be done. I need to look a certain way for my job, for my success, for my career.
Haven't we been there? Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, it's not a enjoyment thing. No. It's not a luxury or a luxurious thing. It's I just need to look and be a certain way.
Yes.
And it's not self-care, like you say. But self-care, I think, is another term that certainly will get some people's eyes rolling, because it's become a little bit, what's the word? Like a caricature almost. And it's seen as indulgent. It's seen as selfish. It's seen as that's not really, you know, going to do anything, you know, long-term or physically or make any kind of actual impact. And it's a massive misconception.
Absolutely, and that's a shame. That's a shame, because we don't know
how thing, isn't it? We haven't quite got there as a culture to allow it its place and the importance, like you say.
Yes, and with that comes the fact that we don't know how to take care of ourselves. We literally don't.
Or what taking care of yourself looks like. Yeah.
I was just going to get to that. You know why? Because now we have a group of people who are really into self-care. So wake up 4 a.m, meditate, yoga, cold water plunge, healthy smoothie. I don't know what comes after that.
Nice big walk.
Yeah. And then
maybe do a little bit of emails.
So we'll
do something else.
Exactly.
Massage.
And they do this because there are so many gurus out there who say this is important for you to do and this is self-care. So they have this, and I've seen among my friends so many times. Now they have a list and a calendar of things that they have to do every day, and that on its own becomes so stressful. And if they don't do it, they feel guilty.
Yeah.
They lose their sense of accomplishment, and they feel guilty. And it
you can't win.
No, there's no, thank you. There's no win. There's no win. This is very important. And that was one of the big realizations I had, because I wanted to do everything so perfectly as well. So, but of course, we're all people. We all have 24 hours in our day, and you can do one thing really good. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a personal example.
Yeah.
So I'm not very big with sharing, and that's why it was so heart-opening for me to see you share it and how brave you are. And yes, I have written books on personal growth and my journey and how they came out of the fact that certain things benefited me. And I felt I needed to give back. You get to that point that you want to give back. And I saw that in your video. So family time is very important for me. But when you're on a very high-flying career path or education path, you need to really be focused. So you miss family events, you miss birthdays, you miss gatherings, you miss milestones.
Yeah.
and you're not there. And I never realized. And when I spoke to the person who helped me, you know what she said? She said, Sophie, they're all equally so important for you that although you're achieving so much, there's no win.
Mm.
Because you feel you lost so much elsewhere.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
That's tough. When it goes deep, it hurts. But that awareness also helps me to understand why I felt the way I felt.
Mm.
You know, being so successful, being looked up to.
Yeah, being a role model.
Being a role model.
Mm-hmm.
Doing everything right.
Mm-hmm.
And then not feeling the way you should feel.
Well, this will make you laugh, because I know that was really hard for you, and I could see the emotion in your face.
Yeah.
And so that whole wellness and self-care thing we were talking about, I was trying so hard to be like the girl boss and, you know, a mom and an entrepreneur and running a business and a family and looking after myself at the same time. I used to have my trainer come at 5:45 in the morning. I would wait till I could hear his car outside the house.
Get out of bed.
And actually roll out of my bed into my gym gear and then be at the front door, you know. And poor him, he'd driven half an hour to be with me at that time. But, you know, I'd done my workout by the time the children were up and got photos and videos of me like doing lunges holding my baby, you know. And some women do that and love it and thrive on it, and, you know, my hat goes off to them. But that point you made was, it was great, and I loved doing it, and I felt it was important and it helped me at the time, but I couldn't sustain that.
No.
And
it's not sustainable.
No, I can't do all of those things. I was trying to do all of those things. Then loads of stuff happened, but trying to put it back together, I haven't gone back to that, even though I'm recovering and we're all kind of a lot more aware. You know, I haven't got the trainer back. I don't think I've seen the inside of a gym for it, you know, a couple of years, but I'm okay with that. I know I should be. I know I should be doing a little bit more for my fitness, but that's why I did my little video, because I walk through the fields. I walk through the fields to get to Costa and then I walk back. That's like what I can handle at the moment. And that has to be okay. I think there's that urge to be like, I've been here, I fell down, and now I've got to get back up to where I was. And it's, I think the big thing that you've been talking about that really resonated with me was like, yes, you may have been up here. We've all had a massive knock and an experience that was very difficult to come through, but that does not mean we go back up. It means we're going through in a different way now. And that feels strange, but it's okay. And like you say, that regular, okay, I'm maybe not going to be going to the gym 3 times a week, but I'm going to do a walk and I do a yoga. I'm not going to fill my day with 14 different wellness and self-care tasks, because again, tons of self-care isn't sustainable either.
No. Nor helpful.
No, but it's that should was a word that I was forbidden from using by my therapist. I've got something on my desk now that just has should scored out, you know, because I should do this, I should do that, I should be busy, I should be more productive, I should be, you know, doing more in my industry or whatever it is. Or I should be, you know, I spent my son's 2nd birthday at a branding course, you know, because I felt that was what I needed to do to kind of get things going and be successful and drive myself forward. So, you know, I completely, you know, hear what you're saying. And I think there's so much wellness and self-care advice out there. It's almost a bit too overwhelming. You don't really know where to start. Where did you start? What's your favorite? I'm taking control of the interview now. Sorry.
I was not expecting this.
Turn the tables on you.
For me, it's giving myself that space to be me.
Yeah.
So for me, it comes back to a little bit of exercise and meditation and being okay with doing nothing.
Yes. Oh, that is such a good one.
And working on that every day and realizing that everybody who's out there preaching, probably not doing,
Yeah.
but also showing that it's okay to work on yourself every day. You don't have to become a guru, and becoming one doesn't ever mean you're not working on yourself. So for me, having that space to experience life, to have a cup of tea and enjoy it rather than do it because you have to, or have that cup of coffee because you need to do something else and you need energy.
I'm still guilty of that one.
No, I mean, it's a process.
Stop in the morning.
It's a process for all of us. And the point is, it's okay for us to be that process because we'll improve one thing. And because I was just going to come back to this, and you said we were up here and we're down here and we want to go back. I think our definition of thriving changes, and recognition of that is important because, yeah, we may think this is just a judgment we're putting on this, that we were up there. Or
Yeah.
I think it is okay to allow ourselves to thrive in a different way, to go on a different direction. And this was hard for me too. This was really difficult for me too, to say, yes, my definition of success has changed, but that's okay. And just because it doesn't fit the society or my group of people or my family's definition of success. And that's really hard because that's a trigger point for a lot of people. Families put a lot of pressure on what success means.
Yeah.
What you should be doing, what you should be looking like. And that's not limited to one culture.
No, I can really see that.
So I think it's important to give ourselves that space and that grace.
Well, like you say, you know, if you're spending if you're in that fight or flight mode, you don't have the capacity to take a moment to, am I responding to this in a...
Am I reacting or responding in the first place?
Responding? Yeah, that's a major one.
Because, how do you know you're in that state? What happens when you're in traffic? What happens when there's a long queue to get your coffee? Do you get frustrated? That's a reaction. What happens when a car comes in front of you and you're not expecting it? What do? Are you reacting? We're constantly reacting. That was a big realization for myself too.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're a bit relaxed, you've just come back from holiday, there's a bit of traffic, you're like, okay, I'll listen to something I like. Yeah.
I think that idea of pleasing others is a huge one. And I think your point is well made about there is a huge amount of expectation placed on us externally, but also internally.
Indeed.
And I think one of the good things to have come out of this whole situation we've been in is, I don't know whether you feel this as well, but almost that we have almost earned the right to go, do you know what? That doesn't really work very well for me. I'd prefer to do this, or I'd prefer to do it this way. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? You know, we've been in a situation where you've seen me working in my pajamas, you know, like we've gone through this process now. And if I'm saying that I need things to work in a different way, or I find it more productive, or I find it healthier to do things in a different way, if you have a problem with that, maybe you're not somebody I should be, you know, listening to or worrying about. You know,
I mean, it's really cliche, but I'm gonna say it, and I ask for forgiveness. Know thyself. No.
Yeah.
We come to a point that we start knowing ourselves a bit better, what we like, rather than all those patterns and programming that was given to us since childhood by family, friends, schooling, institutions, country, media, social media.
Yeah.
We've got all these programs. We're literally like a computer with so much different software in us, and we're literally running on autopilot with different situations in our life. So as an adult, when we take that step back and allow ourselves time to get to know ourselves again, goes back to exactly what you just said. You know, you like things in a different way, and that's okay, and you enjoy it. And that realization is so precious. It's so precious that it's life-changing.
And the ability to express it, because I
Indeed.
didn't have that really.
No.
I still struggle with it. I still struggle sometimes with saying, I don't work on Fridays.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
I end up explaining it's because I don't have childcare on that day, but I'm still contactable. And then I realise that I have just disempowered myself by with these not excuses, but reasons behind it, and putting that out of office on. Like literally, my therapist had to like make me type it out and put it on in front of her, because it's like the world isn't going to end because you've said to somebody you can't do Friday. Sorry.
And it's okay. It's okay to work as many days as you like. You know, I dedicate a day. I so relate to a lot of things you say, because I dedicate a day a week for my admin work, research work, things that I need to get done.
It doesn't mean that you're not working. It means that you're just maybe not client facing, or you're not having patients in for appointments.
But you know, sometimes I just take time out for me.
Go
for me.
Yeah.
And we feel like we need to justify ourselves.
Yeah.
And I completely understand that. And I'm sure a lot of people listening will understand too. And coming to the realization that it's okay. Long term, it pays off.
It does. And I think it's because we are of a generation that have worked and been in a working environment that has been very different.
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I have employees who are of the Gen Z persuasion, and they've come into this very strange time with a completely different attitude.
Absolutely.
And I think some of the older employers out there, people from, you know, the boomer generation and Gen X and things like that, it's poles apart.
Yes.
And, you know, the Gen Zers expect things to be flexible from the off. Quite rightly, in my opinion.
Yes.
But, you know, what to us was a exception to the rule and a very strange circumstance, you know, is to them it's normal, accepted, it's expected. Actually,
Absolutely.
Work-life balance is not just something people throw around. It's like, well, I actually expect to have balance. You know, like we've been so long in a very different kind of work environment and a very different cultural environment around that we've almost had to go through this very difficult process just to be able to express what we need.
Absolutely.
And have what we need.
Absolutely. I mean, I have tons of notes, Julia. I've done research on this, and I really want to talk to you more about this. I wanted to discuss about what's stress, what's chronic stress, what's burnout, their signs and symptoms, how they differ from each other. But you just mentioned something that's very important, and that is the culture of overwork. So you're absolutely right. For our generation, it was normal to work as long as you do in the office, go home and carry on. And a lot of our generation and the generations before us are still doing that. And it's not uncommon that I find my husband sending emails and working 4 a.m, 3 a.m. And it's nice to see that this new generation, and I work with them, and they work till whatever time they work, and then they go out and have fun. So they experience life so much more. They have such richer life experiences, whereas we focus on certain things in life. And I think we can come back to it. I think we can come back to it, because I think we can cover important points such as what's the difference between chronic stress, depression, burnout, how they're intertwined with each other. And I think things like that are important. I've had notes for you on how environment, culture, and other things influence all of this. I have notes on how we can empower ourselves. importance
so
of
much,
there's so
isn't there? I
much
love
to
it.
talk. So I think we can come back to it if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up, I think it's just I really just want to share those last two things that we were talking about before, which is, you know, if you are feeling like this, or if you know somebody who might be
Yes,
feeling
indeed.
like this, what can you do to help, or where should you look first? And as I said in my video, for me personally, therapy was a hugely helpful tool. As you say, going and speaking to a properly qualified, independent,
Yes.
fresh person to take that look at your life and to assist you, I think for me was invaluable, and I would strongly recommend it. I needed medication. You know, my therapist after a certain number of sessions said, look, I feel like your low mood is not, you know, there are other factors at play here. You know, therapy on its own is not going to be enough for you. So we need to look at that to assist you. And I think, you know, for me, that's where the medication conversation came in. I didn't go to the GP saying, I'm feeling burned out, or, you know, I'm feeling down and I don't know what to do anymore. It came in a different route. But either way that it comes, I think at least having that conversation could open up some resources. And there's so many amazing organisations and charities for mental health awareness that can support and just even point you in a direction. You might not feel that you can take that step yet, but maybe even just having a look and seeing what's out there and thinking about it and coming back to it is going to really help. So
Absolutely. And thank you very much for that. Very important point. And also knowing that there's also a lot of free resources out there.
yeah,
So you don't have to allow finance and money be a limitation in this journey. There are a lot of YouTube channels. There are a lot of books, sessions, practices, and I believe some therapies offer free sessions indeed. And, you know, there are people like myself who say, I've written these books and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm not a coach, but I'm sharing my life experience because I think it may be of help to you. For example, until I understood the science behind meditation, I never even experienced, I never gave it a try. That's the truth of it.
Yes.
But once the science of it made sense to me, and I understood how stress is literally making me physically and psychologically unwell, then I had motivation to try it, give it a try. So there are a lot of resources out there, and I will always say there are people who may be selling their books out there, but they offer it free of charge for those who cannot afford it, and I certainly do that. So use those resources even if you're not able to physically yet go and seek help. And if you're at that final straw, please seek help. Pick up the phone, call a helpline, and call 111. Call somebody.
Speak to a friend or a family member. They might not have any solutions, but at least you've told somebody, and that's the first step for sure.
And I always come back to this, again, very cliche, but love yourself enough to take these steps for yourself. Love yourself enough to say, I deserve taking time off for me, and I deserve to take care of me. I take care of everybody else all the time. I ignore my own needs and feelings, but I deserve to be taken care of at times, or all the time.
That's it.
And I think these things are important because we don't know what self-care is. We don't know what self-love is. And we think love is performance. We'll come back to that. No.
I'm looking forward to our next chat already. I can't wait.
But I think we should conclude today because it's quite late and we want to put this out today. But thank you so much, Julia.
pleasure.
Wonderful conversation. And I look forward to reading people's experiences, comments, share with us. It's surprising how our life experiences, once we share them, can either help others or inspire others, or it has such a big outreach.
More than you realise.
Absolutely, and it can touch people in ways that you don't realize at all. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Remember, our journey, our well-being is uniquely ours. It's essential to sift through the noise, the misleading portrayals, and focus on true well-being. Stay aware, stay healthy, and until next time, prioritize your well-being from within and without.